All right, yeah. So quick context for you, Ibby, though. Grant and I worked together. Grant was the first agency guy that I hired of my own volition when I was at Built. Every other agency was forced upon me, and Grant was the guy who got us into podcasts. Kind of taught me everything I know about podcast marketing and about the podcast industry. And is like the guy I would ask any question to. And then we did a panel at Adweek together, and I was trying to get him on this last year, but he was selfish and had a child, and so wouldn't come podcast with us.
Wow, no, that's congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank
how
you.
Old,
Thank
how
you.
Old is how old is your
child?
Child.
Yeah, so first kid, he's 3 months old now. Baby boy Leonardo, and
Sweet name.
he's healthy, happy, just like smiling. We have like giggle and growl time at 7:30 p.m. every night. It's pretty fantastic. Yeah,
That's adorable. Very cute.
yeah.
I like that a lot.
You know how like a lot of baby parents will measure their age in like days or weeks or whatever. They'll be like, oh, it's 6 weeks old. I would love to bring a business bent and be like, my baby is 1/4 old.
My business is
So believe me, when like, because it does get fuzzy, right? They're like, how old is your kid? And it's like, he was born on the 9th. So is it 3 months from the 9th, like a birthday? Well, guys, that's not 13 broadcast weeks. Okay.
Right.
Like that is not a quarter. All right. So my kid was 3 months old on the 13-week mark, which is also a quarter length. If you're sane and responsible. Yeah.
I think I should even tell my age. Like, I'm in Q116. Like,
There we go.
like this is Q116 in my life. Like, I'm like my 116th quarter. Like,
I love that. Yeah.
like
totally.
this business has been alive for whatever.
And I think my age is technically I'm like halfway to life expectancy, so I'm at like age 50 or something like
You're like H1 turnover.
that. Yeah, exactly right. Like L1,
yeah.
lifetime one.
Yeah, can we get like an H1 recap?
Yeah. Happy H50 birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm Ibi Syed,
I'm Sean Collins.
and this is Numbers and Narratives.
All right, so jumping in, Grant, for folks who are silly and don't know who you are already, can you give a quick background of yourself and what you're doing at Right Side Up?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Grant Durando. I've been at Right Side Up for about 7+ years now. And functionally, my job is titled as director of the offline practice. What that actually tactically means is I lead strategic engagements for some of our offline clients here, basically running campaigns in podcast, streaming audio, OTT, VOD, CTV, linear, as well as YouTube endorsements, SiriusXM. So anything in that realm of channel mix is covered by our practice. So I sit on top of a lot of those engagements. I also help with administrating the practice. So these are things like resourcing, personnel, making sure that the right people are in the right seats at the right amount of time, which is essentially the entire function and business model of a consulting firm. So a bit important. And as well as biz dev, sales, marketing, things like this, have a part in that. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm also a 4-year advisor at Podscribe, which I'm pretty proud of because they've really taken over the attribution for podcasts and broader audio. So I'm always excited to call that out as well.
Love that. So anyone who didn't catch all those channels, go ahead and put it back to like half speed and start taking notes. Because as you see,
Yeah,
Grant
I don't
kind of does
actually
it
know what a
all.
lot. I heard podcasts and then I heard some other stuff. I was like, that sounds sick. That sounds really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, right? We started the practice as offline, and 7-8 years ago, how to resist saying 6-7, right? Offline marketing meant it wasn't ad served, it wasn't getting tracked by a pixel. There were these clear cut ways to define it, and we kind of leaned on that, right? And it was like, oh yeah, well, if you can't track it with a pixel, you're working with us, right? Well, then streaming audio very quickly could be tracked by a pixel. It's like, okay, can't be tracked by a pixel or streaming audio, right? And then now everything can be tracked by a pixel. And then it was, oh, well, it's relationship-based buying. Well, that's pretty true for the most part. Like, we have great relationships with our network partners, our tech partners, all of that. But more and more, we're getting into self-serve platforms, right? With either programmatic or just ad-served. So it's just kind of, I wish there was a better name for it, but I'm not sure what it is. So we call it offline. We lean on that. And then, you can hit rewind and listen in half speed for the full channel listing.
Yeah, it is interesting because, I remember like when we kicked off my first time when I worked with you, I had assumed there was going to be no digital kind of attribution and tracking on podcasts, right? That's what when Grant and I met was, I picked him as my agency partner over a few other pitches, and he kind of started schooling me up on podcast marketing and offline stuff, or offline according to that definition. But I had assumed it was going to be purely based on survey data and media mix models and stuff like that. And then first meeting, he's like, yeah, so you need to install this pixel. And I was like, wait, what are we talking about now? And now Tatari with linear TV, and there's so many new solutions out there that are kind of changing the way these more either traditional or kind of closer to traditional channels have changed.
Definitely. Yeah. And probably the most obvious and recent example is radio, right? I mean, when people think about traditional media channels, radio is probably at the top of like that mental list, right? And, starting with, I'll kind of zoom out to like podcasts getting ingested into MMMs. That was really kind of a turning point for us as a practice. And for me as a professional, I'm just like, okay, MMMs aren't going anywhere. The logic on them makes sense. I get it. I'm not a stats wizard, but like if I was in-house and running a complex growth program, I would probably want some sort of holistic view. I understand. I'm not going to stand in the way of that progress. Let's take something manual like podcasts and plug it into the MMM. Well, through some tinkering, we were able to use products like Podscribe and Magellan and even, Claritas and, formerly ArtSci can do this, plug in pixel delivery data into the MMMs to understand the impact of podcasts vis-a-vis other online channels, paid search, social, display, programmatic, whatever. Radio, though, stood apart as a non-track delivery asset. And what I mean by that is when you want to know if your radio delivery happened, you ask your stations, like radio stations with the towers and all of that, to like send you like, I imagine it comes through as a fax, like I want the sound, but it is an email, to be fair. And how do we like put that up against this like digitally tracked delivery? And spoiler alert, we did it, right? We were able to partner with Podscribe to co-develop a right side up exclusive radio attribution tool that essentially looks at radio attribution via spike level analysis and Bayesian modeling, which then brings radio into this like digitally trackable world, right? And
but now
the cool thing is we cross-reference that with MMM really quickly.
You said a word that I don't understand. So what's
Bayesian modeling? This is really funny because Sean understands the word MMM and I understand the word Bayesian modeling, and so like this is basically like, so if I understand correctly, the thing that you're trying to do is, so basically what you're saying is like the thing that's like very difficult is to track something like that through, traditionally you can't track it through a pixel. And so basically what you do is you do a very conventional sort of like stats analysis where you like all held else equal, what was this like before, what was this like after, and then what you do is you take the sort of like the slope, and that's not how Bayesian modeling works, but like you effectively take the rise and you attribute that much in some sort of capacity back to that. How does that work? Can you explain to me how that works? Like, does that mean that you have to take everything into a Bayesian model, Grant? Like, do you have to take every single other attribute into a Bayesian model? Honestly, maybe this is boring for the listeners.
Well, generally speaking, though, it'd be like most MMMs are using, or I would say like the best MMMs are using Bayesian modeling. Right. So actually, that wasn't the phrase that got me. I know about Reverend Thomas Bayes.
I called Sean dumb. I apologize to both Sean and to the listeners. Sean is much smarter than I am. I really wanted to just like hold
that's not true, but I know about Bayesian.
I was wrong.
No, my question was, you said something about spike analysis.
Yeah.
Or something like that. What was that one?
Yeah, so that's kind of like the marketing layer on top of the Bayesian analysis, right? All it says is we know that you ran an advertisement at 9:53 a.m. on January 16th, And now we're looking from 9:53 to 10:01 because we have an 8-minute window. That's where the analysis comes in, to see what activity happens above the baseline of your overall web activity, for example. So if you expect to get 123 visits in 8 minutes and you get 128, you therefore have an incremental 5 visits, which then can be attributed back to that radio spot, for example. So that's all it is. That's spike level analysis. It's a TV word, right? That's how TV has been measured for decades, probably. And now it's really making its way into radio with this exclusive tool.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, which is really cool. And it kind of highlights how traditional media has been so far outside. Like, there's 6 problems that we just talked through of getting radio into MMM. And we've been able to kind of like bridge that gap. And it makes you kind of think like maybe there's nothing that'll be disconnected in the near future from a marketing stack, right? Which is exciting and interesting and maybe a little scary for some folks, but yeah.
How are you guys like? I mean, this is like very like this is traditional stats, which like leads into traditional like machine learning. Are you guys doing any sort of like? How does the world of AI and LLMs like come into this for you guys, if at all? Like, if the answer is like it doesn't, then we'll just cut it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I think from like an attribution standpoint, AI hasn't really made its mark.
No,
at this point.
No.
But
it's like
maybe,
it's tough.
Yeah, it is. And if you already have like a stats basis built, like, you know, depending on how you look at it, like machine learning kind of is AI. So if you're doing an ML model, like it's already done. So
the ChatGPTs of the world are much better at like helping you like read a graph and then like translate it to words, because somehow people like words better than they like graphs. But besides that, like in this world, it's like not as useful.
I don't think the underlying automations are new. It's the ability to utilize the automations for non-technical operators that's new. For example, I'm writing Google scripts, right, to optimize some of my operational stuff. I would have never said, hey boss, can I get 3 hours to write a Google script because I can actually do that. That would have never been in my toolbox. But now it's something we do every week at every layer of our business, which is super exciting because it makes like, theoretically, that should press the barrier to entries to these channels, to these expert level operators down, because we don't have to cover all that overhead, right? Theoretically. So it's exciting. I'd love to be able to open the door to more folks. We want to grow the pool of advertisers in our channels. I think that's like the goal. The goal is not to like poach advertisers from other agencies and like just pass brands back and forth. We want to open the door to new and exciting brands that we believe in. So I would say that's where AI has really impacted our business the most, especially LLMs.
That's super cool. I mean, it is just wild. Yeah, I think you said it really well. Like that, the amount of leverage it gives you by removing and automating some of these tasks that you would have either been paying an entire different employee for, or having an expert have to send these emails to reschedule stuff or to update an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. The value, the time to value, and now the amount of time that you can spend actually sitting and talking with me, the client, and just like teaching me, going, really getting a deep understanding. That is, I think services businesses stand to gain so much, because the bottleneck has always been the admin time that goes into servicing an account and logging your hours and updating forecasts and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think that's why you see a lot of, this was happening before, but, the coagulation and aggregation of the bigger kind of holdco agencies, right? Like they're now under this intense competition from boutique firms like us who, we don't need the army of people to support the operations, right? Now, granted, we're also not buying media in 60 countries. So it is a bit of an apples to oranges comparison, but I do feel like there's a shift happening in the services industry, and it's starting with the holdcos, and hopefully it ends with boutique firms like us, who can provide that hands-on strategic service without having to be bogged down by, 60 countries worth of admin, right?
Right.
Yeah, which is cool. It's exciting.
So shifting a little bit, like, you have an incredible book of business, Right Side Up, and work with some really great companies, like, and really great marketers too, And so when you kind of look at the ecosystem of the channels and tactics that people are using and this is January, so January is all about making big claims about what's going to happen in the rest of the year. What are you kind of looking back at 2025 and looking forward to 2026? What do you see as sort of the either trending channels or trending tactics, or sort of those untapped ones where people are really undervaluing or don't even know about certain channels or tactics?
Yeah, I think I would summarize that by saying I think traditional bottom funnel tactics are changing and moving to a top funnel, high funnel tactic. So digging into that more, I think, the advent of AI generated marketing content, especially on channels like paid search, social, and even like display and video, I think that's really starting to get devalued in the eyes of the consumer. I think, and maybe you guys like feel this way too. Like, I feel like when I see AI, unless it's done at like an award-winning like comedy terrorizing level where it's like, wow, that is artistry, right? The human artistry on top of the AI. If I see it, I'm like, wow, like F this. Like, I'm not interested in whatever this product or service is, because they can't even be bothered to like serve me a solid like Instagram ad, right? And it's like the cartoon people and like all of that. It's like, just go away, right? So I think now that that's happening, it's pushing companies and brands to say, how do I connect with these consumers in a more like genuine, authentic way that's still scalable, that's still going to drive performance, that's still going to drive those CACs that I was used to seeing on Meta, right? Ultimately, like that's what people want. And over the last year, I would say the last 12 months, we have had more and more brands matching or exceeding Meta spend with podcasts specifically. This is a battle I've been fighting like for 9 years, right? Trying to beat Meta in ad spend. And it just hasn't been able to happen because of two things. One, attribution. And two, just like the ease of transacting on Meta, right? With a like algorithmic optimizing function. It's really hard to compete with that with like, hey man, can I buy 3 mid rolls for 60 seconds at, $22 CPM? Okay, $21 CPM. Okay, great. Like, it's just so hard to scale that. So all of these things are coming together, and we're actually like overspending, spending more on audio now, podcast specifically, than Meta. And I think that trend's going to continue. And I think it also helps us like fill our funnel too of like new to audio advertisers who come to us and they're like, man, I'm like really tapping out on Meta. I don't know what to do. What should I do next? And a lot of times the answer is absolutely podcast advertising, because it is the barrier to entry so low. You can work with a firm like Right Side Up and get the expertise without having to pay for headcount and all of that. So I think that's like kind of the trend, is like, how does marketing reform itself in this world of like AI ubiquity? And on the flip of that, there are brands that we work with that use AI for audio ads, right? There's a great company out there called Wondercraft, for example, that we have a great partnership with. And they make fantastic audio ads that sound extremely good and extremely real, and the price can't be beat. So on the flip of that is like, we are also using AI to make advertisements, but I think the format feels more authentic and doesn't give the 25 to 44-year-old core demographic of podcasts, doesn't give them that instinctual itch of like, ooh, is that fake? Right? Is that inauthentic? So it's really threading the needle, operationalizing scale, optimizing for performance, but also taking advantage and utilizing these new technologies in order to, achieve brand outcomes that are meaningful. So that's one thing that I'm seeing a lot of. I have a couple others, but yeah, I'll pause there.
I mean, so why do you think it is that that audio is coming in so strong? Is it like that we've been over saturated with ads on Meta so much as users that we now like are kind of like just discredit everything, like just expect to see ads, you just like scroll past them, but we have like some level of, I guess, comfort with there being, I guess because like radio has always had ads and podcasts have, we kind of like get conceptually, and it feels less sort of like corporate disruption, or like why do you think people are more okay? Is it just that the trust factor of the host read ads, or like what is it that makes a podcast ad or an audio ad feel less weird as a user?
Yeah. I mean, this is a very subjective question. Like, everybody's going to have a different answer to this, but like, I personally think it's the nature of self-selecting media. So even if you are a cord cutter and you're watching all of your video programming on YouTube, or you have a Hulu Live TV subscription, you're still kind of enmeshed into the service model of like what's on TV right now, or who has Hulu signed licensing rights with so that I can access their content, right? You're always in this, you're being served. And then we, as marketers, ask questions like, why aren't people responding to this like extra morsel of food that I put out for them? And it's like, because they're in a pen, right? Like, that's why. I think podcasts are so special because to the consumer, this is not necessarily true in actuality, but from the optics of the consumer, they're not in this like network driven pen, right? It's them going into their preferred audio partner, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Overcast, Pocket Cast. Like if you want to be like super indie about it, you can do it because of the nature of the RSS feed. And you can go pick your favorite show and you can look at the library of, 100 episodes back and go listen to your favorite episode if you want. And there's no restrictions on that, right? Because it's an perceivably open ecosystem. I think when advertisements are served amidst that backdrop for consumers, the consumers perceive it as support, right? Like that's just a different advertising environment. I think Meta, to like a less eccentric extent, is the same as that. It's doing its best to algorithmically serve consumers what they like want to eat in that sense. But it's still a non-opt-in experience, right? Like, yeah, you're opting into open Instagram, sure. But like once you're scrolling, you're now like down the river, right? And so it's really like not in your control. And I mean, we could talk about social media addiction, like all of that, right? Like I think that scrolling is entrapment. And if you're getting ads served while you're in that environment, you're probably not going to respond extremely well to it off the bat. Now, like, that's not to say like Meta doesn't work. Meta works, right? Like paid search works, CTV works, right? Like these entrapped environments are still like very viable and very like good environments for advertisers to be in. But if you're looking at the trends and seeing podcast advertising being really interesting to marketers and seeing it perform, or in a lot of cases outperform those other channels, I think there's something to be said about like opt-in and like the notion of perceived support.
That makes sense. That really resonates with me is when I started getting obsessed with email marketing, it was for a lot of those same reasons, right? Where like the number of times that a user has to deliberately choose to interact with you before they even get a marketing message, to me was uniquely special, right? And that I could opt out at any time, right? So I have to sign up for your email list. Then I have to, amidst the 100,000 emails in my promotion folders, pick to open this one. And then I need to like read and scroll. And so like there's so many, and like at any point I can tell you to get the heck out of my inbox. I'm done with you.
Yeah.
It just feels special to me compared to a Meta. And it's, it's again, one of those few channels where you can speak, and this is where it becomes, semi inauthentic, but I think if done well, it's not, where like I can start to use your engagement history to personalize the journey. And so it does become personalized brand to customer, user, marketed to person, whatever, in a way that most channels can't do. And I think that podcasts, even though you can't do that level of personalization at scale, the very nature of the way you buy podcasts does give you a little bit more control as a marketer of like, okay, I can build a persona and a message for people who listen to Dave Gerhardt versus people who listen to, Neil Patel or something like that, right? And say these are different marketing people, and the way I talk to them is going to be different, and you can like build a relationship that way. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like a couple of things in there, we're seeing that hyper personalized messaging is still in demand by advertisers. So just because they can't get it on audio doesn't mean they're not asking for it. And that's where teams like Wondercraft come in, where, you know, we can partner with them and then partner with ecosystems like maybe an AdsWiz or maybe an Acast or maybe an Odyssey, right? And basically create and we've done this actually, hyper targeted like zip code level campaigns, where if you're in different suburbs of Cleveland, like we can have different messages for you. That operationally like couldn't happen a year ago, right? But it can happen now, and it kind of creates the best of both worlds, right? You're listening to that self-selected content, but like getting really personalized, curated messaging that resonates and is relevant, right? Ultimately, you know, jokes and, you know, potential nihilism aside, we're not trying to just like shove products down people's throats because we like want to make more money, right? Like ultimately, at least my values are, I want to bring products that are relevant to audiences, and make them aware of them, and then maybe give them like a friendly incentive to take an action. But you know, that's really it. So I think blending those things, that audience host connection with hyper targeted marketing tactics, utilizing AI or otherwise, and putting those all together is really powerful and very cool. You guys should see me when I get like a CTV ad for something that's like highly irrelevant to me. I lose my cool, right?
Yeah. That's funny. This is great. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, I learned a ton. I've just been Googling kind of on the side, kind of one of the things that you've been talking about, which is cool. I've been kind of schooled and I don't know anything about offline marketing, and so this is super interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
What was the one thing that you Googled that was like most interesting to you?
I went down. Well, I was obviously listening.
Of course, yeah.
The LLMs and the MMMs thing was super interesting. I went down that rabbit hole. Trying to understand where and when all of these, like I was trying to understand timeline. But that was kind of the second one, where it's like, hey, how is this changed? I'm not like quite not being in this world, like trying to understand because like compared to traditional data science, like it is actually quite statsy and quite a lot more advanced than most industries are, that are at least technology forward. And so trying to figure out like, hey, has it always been this way? Like, what has been like that? That was I was trying to figure out and learn as much as possible. But this is super, super cool.
Cool.
I learned a ton.
Yeah, Grant.
I mean,
thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Pleasure to talk with you guys, and eager to do it again soon. So thank you for having me.
If people want to work with you specifically, Right Side Up, more generally, where are the right places to find you, track you down, all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to have a conversation. Our intake is not salesy. It's very consultative. And so if any of this is interesting to you and you aren't ready and you know you're not ready, but you just want to like map it out, for example, I'm always happy to take that call as it relates to offline marketing or any kind of growth marketing, because that's what we cover at Right Side Up. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn is probably the best way, Grant Durando, Durando. Or you can also email growth@rightsideup.com. No funky spelling in there, right? As in left and right, side up.com.
And yeah, I can absolutely attest to working with them, even as we were evaluating platforms and evaluating vendors, was phenomenal. There was no pressure tactics from the team. They were very honest and transparent about what our options were, what kind of right looked like, how we could use this as a proof of concept test. Because this was when I was at Built, had never done podcast advertising in my life before. And so we were really trying to figure out how we prove out if this is a viable channel for us. And Grant and his team were able to walk us through the whole thing. Literally figuratively held my hand the entire way. And even after I've left Built, you can tell I've kept in contact with Grant for going on 2 years now after that engagement. So highly recommend working with Grant Right Side Up at any time.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you.
Nice.
All right. Well,
awesome. Well,
great to see your face again. Now that we're nearly neighbors, I'll be hitting you up, Grant. We can grab lunch sometime.
Would love
Maybe.
that. Yeah.
We'll see.
For
you
short
later,
4 hours
Let's do
delay.
Bye.